Hey, in today's podcast, I'm going to cover how to get rid of that first-time director stamp on your forehead and get through a production on a really low budget. So, hope you enjoy it. If you were doing a feature film about a decade ago, it would have been different than it is today, right? And I'm talking about just gunning a feature film. Because a decade ago, not everybody was doing it still, right? If you did it, you probably could have used that as a calling card, and it would have been, you would have wiped that first-time director stamp off of your forehead just by getting out there and making a feature film. But nowadays, you have hundreds of people who are able to do it, right? With the kind of this rising crop of film festivals, you're able to get your feature film, screened at some film festivals that have reputability, and it's creating a pretty massive saturation. But it also, in my opinion, today has changed the definition of what a first-time director is. And we're in May 2019 now. And so first-time director to me is someone who has not directed a feature film, and it's also someone who has directed a feature film but has not been distributed. And the reason I say that is because everybody's going to find it a lot harder today to get money, opposed to like 10 years ago. If you did that feature film, someone would have been like, hey, what have you made? And you would show me your feature film, and they said, okay, we'll cut you the check for $250,000 to go make your film. Where nowadays, even if you have that feature film, they want to know, have you been distributed, right? Because they want to know, have you brought revenue to somebody? Because now with the rise of analytics, people can see, okay, what is your value as an actor, as a producer, as a director? You have a monetary value to you as you're a commodity, right? Your product, meaning your film, is just as valuable as you are, right? So when you go out and you want to make a feature film, you're going to run into a wall now where people are like, okay, so how did your last film do? And if you don't have a last film, okay, you're kind of in a tough situation. And if you've done a last film but it didn't get distributed, then obviously something's wrong. Red flag. This guy couldn't bring in money. He couldn't bring in any revenue off of his project. What's wrong with him? Right? That's how people think. And so I'm going to kind of lay out a little bit of the long game that I think every single filmmaker, every single screenwriter, director needs to think about. Because if you want to wipe that first-time director stamp off of your forehead, you got to do some things, really starting with the development of your script. I'm all about long game. And I'm all about strategizing. I came from a family, I like to give these chess analogies because I came from a really heavy chess playing family. My uncle, my grandpa were both professional chess players. I grew up playing competitive chess. And there's this common misconception that, chess is all about looking moves ahead. It's more about positioning, right? Moves ahead is more of, we're going to talk about force moves. And this is a really technical thing we're not going to get into. But, chess is about strategically placing your pieces and controlling parts of the board and understanding where you're going. And just like stories and just like life, you got to have a goal when you're on the board, right? And that's really the distinguishing factor between a professional and an amateur. A professional, opens his pieces and then sees a weak part of his opponent and decides to go fully for it, right? He commits completely to the goal, which is I'm going to break that pawn chain and I'm going to seize that pawn or whatever I see that's weak over there, and I'm going to gain an advantage. And when you're playing high-level chess, a pawn's enough to win a game, right? And so while an amateur is going to kind of open his pieces, look around, say, okay, let me try this over here. Go for a haymaker. He's going to swing and miss, and then he's going to try to go off to another area and try to attack again. And things usually fall apart for the amateur in that way. And so I like to, use that analogy as, when you're planning whatever you're doing in this feature business, or when you're any content really for that matter, you have to strategically decide, like, where are you going to take this film, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to get it distributed? And I think today, more than ever, you have to look internationally, because when you take your film, when it's all said and done and it's cut, and you're going to take it to a sales agent or a distributor, they're going to immediately look at the genre and say, okay, can I sell this internationally? So if you come to them with a drama, or you come to them with a comedy, they're going to say, okay, well, I don't know if I can distribute this internationally. I don't see money really in it, and they're going to lowball you. Now, there's a lot of other factors. I'm just kind of starting off. We're going to cover, I'm going to kind of breeze through my 10 points here, but I just want to really set up the importance of strategy. Like, what are you going to set up for your next project? Are you going to, if you're saying, okay, I got to break through this wall and I got to go get distributed because I want to break through the wall and I want to actually have a career as a director, then you have to get your movie sold. And how are you going to get sold? I think you have to seriously take a look at getting into a genre that can sell. Action, thriller, suspense, horror. A combination of all of those, like a thriller sci-fi, or an action and an action comedy probably does better than just a comedy. You have to look at genres that really sell, and those genres are really things that people don't have to think too much about. Why? Because a thriller or an action or a horror, it's really simple in structure. It's really about a character. Like a horror is a character that wants to get out, right? Or wants to get from point A to point Z and escape from the monster, right? Or whatever the story may be, it has to be pretty basic. And that's why my first point here, and keep in mind that I'm giving you tips here on how to make this film for a low budget, because I understand that not everybody is going to be able to raise $100,000 for themselves, or even $50,000. But I think we can all raise $10,000 or $20,000. Like, we can work a job, we can save that in a year, and then we can put it into our feature film and we can get it made. Right? But now, you're making that investment. You are a business. You're going to raise that money however you're doing it, whether you're working a waiter job or, collecting trash off the street. I don't know what you're doing, but you have to do whatever you have to do to get that money to invest it back into yourself. Right? And so when you get that 10, 20 grand, what are you going to do? You're going to have to use it really wisely. So number one is write the script with minimal characters and locations, because that's going to save you money, right? And that's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure that your script follows a mythical structure, or just a basic tentpole structure. Why? Because it works. Okay, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, I want to make a character-driven stuff. Great. I believe all stories are character-driven. All movies are character-driven. I don't even believe in a plot-driven screenplay or a plot-driven film. It's all driven by character, but you hit the tent poles. They're proven to work. This mythical structure has worked for generations, right? It's the vocabulary for all the successful films today. So make sure that you follow a structure. You have your setup, you have your inciting incident, you have your second act break, your midpoint, your low point, your climax. You know what it is. If you're a screenwriter, you know what it is. Look for films that speak this language, because this language is universal. It's instinctual. If you're a really experienced screenwriter or storyteller, these points are really instinctual. So, look for a project that is like that. Write the project that is like that, but make sure your minimal characters, minimal locations. Don't go for the high budget stuff, right? Do a thriller, do a horror in the woods, do a suspense movie. You can do that really for a minimal budget. You're going to have to be creative with how you actually accomplish that. But that's number one. And listen to more of my podcasts. I'm going to talk a lot about crafting story, because that may help you, because that's a challenge. And I can tell you firsthand, I've had to do it. It's a tremendous challenge to write a script with minimal characters and locations, because what would you call it? It's a condition that you have to keep in mind for the remainder of the story. You're not really free when you're writing a story with those types of rules and restrictions. So it's challenging, but you can do it. Number two is get camera equipment that is not expensive. Don't go for the Alexa Red. You need a bigger crew. You need more people. Just use a DSLR. You don't need an AC for a DSLR. You can have a friend who knows how to work camera, or hire somebody who knows how to work camera and run and gun, and make sure they're on the same page as you, because if you're going to shoot a film for cheap, you got to do this in 15 days or under, right? So that means you're going to be shooting like 7 or 8 pages a day if you want to get your feature film done on time and on budget, right? So get somebody who has a DSLR camera, who knows how to use it. Make sure, a couple little pointers off the top of my head is get a zoom lens, maybe like an 18 to something that starts 18 to 100, or I think there's a recently used an 18 to 80, something where you don't have to replace lenses. Don't go through that trouble. You have to be there ready to go at any time, and you have to zoom in at any time and change the zoom on the lens. Yeah, don't go, don't use prime lenses in this circumstance. Just go ahead and skip the whole swapping of lenses and all that, and try to get a lens that has image stabilization. That's going to save you a lot of time and effort. Second is get a good sound guy, and this is pretty difficult because usually a good sound guy is not going to be cheap. They run about $350 a day if you're lucky. Um, Listen, you may be able to get a friend who has a Zoom and a boom mic, and that may work. If he's committed and he's willing to do it. I think it's all about really getting good stuff. A little pointer is get someone who has lav mics and also a boom, so you can get two inputs for each character. It's just good practice, because if there's any errors, say, if your boom guy is a stoner and he's laying there half asleep and the boom is facing another direction, at least you have the lav mics. That's happened to me, by the way. Next is cast talented actors. Listen, we all want to get the major actors who are going to get us distributed. You're not going to be able to do that for 10, 20,000. But what you can do is you can go to acting classes. Don't go as a director or a producer. Go as an actor. Just scope it out. Find that person who you think is talented. And I can say there's some, if you're a talented filmmaker, you're probably pretty good at spotting talent, right? And knowing acting is a very, very great skill to have. Being able to identify actors, I would say, this is a very intuitive process. Casting is a very dynamic thing, right? It's almost like each character is a note, right? And they have to harmonize. They're like a note on a guitar, and you have to feel that dynamic. So if you don't have that, try to find somebody, a friend who's maybe good at casting, who can feel that dynamic that complements the style of your story. A lot of the times I see people who just go out and they just cast people who look the part. They say, okay, I need a gangster. Let me just hire that guy who looks big and mean, but the guy has no acting chops. I think you're better off going and trying to find the most talented actor, because changing the look's not so hard. Always look for talent. That's my thing, because you never know. Your movie can get distributed, and next thing you know, your actor that you casted can be a major success a year later, 2 years later, and that adds a lot of value to your story. So keep that in mind. Next is keep the shoot short. You're going to have to budget, and you're going to have to schedule. And scheduling is not something that is necessarily easy, especially if you've never done it. If you want to save your time and money from getting a line producer to do the budget and schedule for you, here's a little tip. Just start off by stacking your locations first. Stack your locations, and then figure out, then plug your characters into it and just see right there, how you're going to shoot, because you got to shoot all your locations at one time. Or like, say, if you have a bunch of house locations, shoot those all consecutively. Don't jump from the house, go out to the street, then come back to the house and set up the house again. You don't want to do that. You're not going to shoot your movie in a linear fashion. Okay, this isn't The Revenant. You don't have $120 million. You got to go and shoot your movie in an efficient way, and that's how you're going to do it. You're going to shoot it all. You're going to just wrap the locations one after the other. So stack your locations first. Figure out what you have to get from each location. Make it short. Make it as short of a shoot as you can to save the money. Then 6, start your production with the easiest shots. This is just a little technical thing. Sometimes it takes a little while for the cast and crew to get acquainted. Go ahead and start with the easier shots. It can take some time to warm up. So if you don't film your key scenes up front, do them more towards the middle or the back of the production. 7, editors and post-production managers. So if you can get an editor that is good, that's going to be amazing. But if you can get an editor that can also do the post-production management, that's going to be even better. It's going to save you time and money, and it's going to save you quite a bit of hassle, because an editor is going to take care of editing. But if he can also manage the color correction, the VFX, if there are any, the titles, the sound mixers, the sound designers, maybe he knows a composer, then you're going to have you're going to have a lot more time to focus on things that a director needs to focus on. So I would say, a great editor is paramount. They're basically rewriting the story for you. And having one who can actually do the production management is going to just save you a lot of time and hassle. Number 8, incentivize your team. This is just a good piece of advice. It's just good business. If people are working for free or doing deferred payment, give them a reason to do it. Give them a piece of the pie. Basically, you're basically going to give them a contract and tell them, hey, if you do this for free, I'm going to give you a piece of the pie when this thing sells and gets distributed. It's fair, and it's a great way to have your actors and your crew work hard for you and feel ownership of the project. Number 9 is control the energy of the entire production. As a director, producer, you're putting your money into this. I know it can be stressful, but try to keep the mood good. Manage the mood, manage the egos. That's really your job, and it's really, you want to make everybody happy. You want to make everybody on your set feel like you care for them. That's how they're going to come back every day and show up on time and do a great job for you. And I think that's probably one of the most important things, lessons that you can have literally in life, because each film is a business. It literally is. Like if you're making a pretty big production, like every time you have a new production, you're basically opening an LLC, like a major production, a Hollywood production. They're opening actually an LLC for the production. So XYZ Movie LLC is what they're going to open. And so every movie is a company. It's like a startup, and you want to give everybody the incentive, and you want to make everybody feel like they're part of it, right? And that's going to help you if you're doing a low budget movie, for everybody to feel invested and feel like they have ownership of it. And finally, like after you made your film, you just want to take it to markets. You want to take it to sales agents and distributors. Now, send it to the major festivals. If you get in, great. If not, you don't have to wait. Go on IMDb Pro, find all the sales agents and distributors. Send them the trailer. Make a good press kit. If your film is any good, they're going to take a look at it. And listen, they're not going to look at it closely. They're going to play it in the background while they're doing paperwork. They're going to play your movie and probably another movie on another TV in the same room just to see what it looks like. Does it look entertaining? And if they think it looks decent, they're going to call you in for a meeting, and they may take a look at it closer, and you may be able to get distributed. But I'm telling you, genre, think about it again. Game planning from the beginning. You got to think about your genre, and you got to think about your end game, right? And it all ties together. The story that you create is really setting the stage for what you're going to be able to do afterwards when it's all said and done.